Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down complex topics using the source material itself. Today, we're cracking open a massive subject that has a huge impact on all of us: global tax evasion.
Okay, let's just dive right in with this quote. It's easy to think of tax evasion as this unavoidable thing, just a side effect of a global economy. But what the research makes crystal clear is that nope, this is no accident. It's a system that exists because of the policy choices we've made. Or, more importantly, the ones we've failed to make.
And we're not talking about a small problem here. The sources we're digging into frame this as what it is: a massive global heist that's draining resources from every single society on the planet.
Just look at that number for a second. $1 trillion. That's what multinational corporations, just the corporations, manage to shift into tax havens every single year. It's $1 trillion that essentially vanishes from the public purse before it can ever be used to pay for, well, anything. And, the cost goes way beyond just the money. When people start to feel like the system is rigged, that there's one set of rules for the wealthiest and another for everybody else, it just corrodes the trust that holds our societies together. It's a fundamental threat to the social contract. So the big question is, how? How in the world does this actually happen? How do trillions of dollars just disappear into this strange parallel financial universe? Well, it turns out there's a playbook, and it really boils down to two main strategies.
All right, play number one. This one's all about secrecy. This is the go-to move for wealthy individuals who are trying to make their assets completely invisible to tax authorities. The whole goal: total anonymity.
And a key tool they use for this is the anonymous shell company. You really have to think of it like a corporate ghost. It exists on paper, sure, but there's no office, no employees, no actual business going on. Its one and only purpose is to hide who actually owns the money. And we got this incredible peek behind the curtain thanks to things like the Panama Papers leak. I mean, that was a bombshell, right? It blew the doors wide open and showed us this whole hidden global network of law firms and accountants dedicated to just one thing: creating these ridiculously complex, anonymous structures to make their clients' wealth simply disappear. Okay, now for play number two. This is the one that's been mastered by the giant multinational corporations. See, their game isn't just about hiding money. It's about legally moving it somewhere it can't really be taxed. And this shows you exactly how the trick works. It's not about moving factories or anything like that. It's a brilliant bit of accounting. A company makes huge profits in, say, Germany. But before Germany can tax those profits, the company pays an enormous royalty fee for its own brand to a tiny subsidiary that it's set up in a tax haven like Bermuda. And just like that, the profits are now legally in Bermuda, where they get taxed at or close to 0%. So you hear all of this, and it's really easy to feel kind of hopeless, right? But the data actually shows that the last decade has been a massive turning point in the fight against at least one part of this whole system.
So what happens when countries decide to stop competing against each other and actually start cooperating instead? Well, we don't have to guess. Let's take a look at the data.
This chart is really remarkable. Just focus on that bottom line for a second. See how it's kind of high and stable? And then boom, after 2017, it just drops off a cliff. What happened? A new policy called automatic information exchange. Basically, for the first time, more than 100 countries forced their banks to automatically tell other governments about foreign-owned accounts. And the result? As you can see plain as day, the amount of untaxed offshore wealth just dropped like a stone. And the takeaway here is absolutely crucial. Progress isn't just possible, it's already happening. When governments actually create and enforce policies with some real teeth, like automatically sharing information, the system works. That wall of secrecy that tax evaders have always relied on just starts to crumble. But of course, the playbook is always adapting. You close one loophole and sophisticated new strategies pop up. The fight is just shifting to a new battleground. So, as that information sharing cracked down on secret bank accounts, the money just moved. Now, wealth is being hidden in assets that aren't covered by those agreements, like luxury real estate. And for corporations, the game has changed too. It's shifted from just finding simple tax havens to a much more complex global race to the bottom, where countries are actually competing to offer the biggest subsidies and loopholes. So, to meet these new challenges, researchers have outlined two powerful new tools. And these aren't just vague ideas. They're very detailed proposals designed to target these new forms of tax avoidance right at the very top. First up, a tool aimed at corporations. The idea is to take the existing global minimum corporate tax and strengthen it, close the loopholes. That alone could generate an estimated $250 billion in new revenue every single year.
And here's the second tool, this one for the super rich. It's a new proposal for just a 2% minimum tax on the wealth of the world's 3,000 or so billionaires. The estimated revenue from that? Another $250 billion annually. And this really puts it all into perspective. If you combine those two policies, that's $500 billion a year. That amount matches recent estimates for what developing countries need annually just to deal with the challenges of climate change. So the money is there, it's just not being collected. And this really brings us to the key takeaway from all the source material we've looked at. Tackling global tax evasion is a policy choice. It's not some economic fantasy. We actually have the tools. So, the path forward, as outlined in the research, basically rests on 3 pillars. First, we need to expand transparency with something like a global asset registry, so we know who owns what and where. And second and third, we need to build new tax floors to stop this race to the bottom, one for corporations and one for the ultra-wealthy. This quote really reminds us what's truly at stake here. This isn't just about spreadsheets and tax code. It's about funding the public goods, the schools, the hospitals, the infrastructure, the climate solutions that our societies absolutely depend on to function, let alone thrive. And that's really the thought we'll leave you with today. The research shows that progress is possible, and the next steps are clear. The only remaining variable is political will. Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.